Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June Board of Architectural Review. Our first application tonight is Luke Rock. I don't know if that's still pending in the village. What do we do, Jamie? Jamie, where are we with the 200 Main Street? Is that still pending? They were. All right, well, they're not. So we'll hold that off since the Russell Planning Board. It looks like David Greenberg, Underhill Road is a legitimate Vpb Bar. Oh. So we'll hear that. So are you here to speak to?
Yes,
okay.
I'm an applicant, me and Nadesky, and this is my architect, John Power.
Okay.
And I'm proposing to build this. I have a contract for sale on the property right now, pending building permit.
It's an empty lot.
It's a vacant lot, yeah, empty. Yes.
All right. So.
Sure. So I have a copy of the plans in there, and this is kind of a.
I'm sorry.
Rendering.
You can just go
For the
partially.
Oh, we're redesigning it.
So you have a copy of the plans in
Okay.
the application.
Probably gonna have to use this microphone so people can hear.
We could squeeze in the budget, that might make it easier. Well, we also, I got a lot of okay.
So I say in the narrative that I'm proposing to build a single-family, 4-bedroom, 3-bath residence. The interior layout will be a modern, contemporary design with the emphasis on large windows and focusing on the Macy Park view that borders the property in the rear. I intend to build the house into the existing slope to take advantage of the natural contours and to make it less obtrusive and more fitting in the natural setting. It'll be well set back from the road, and I intend to have mostly landscape yard with grass lawn and plantings around the boundaries. And this is a picture of a house plan that mimics sort of what I'm looking to do, like less of a cookie cutter McMansion type house, but more of a modern design. And unique.
And you need no variances, it fits on the land?
Correct.
You good?
Yes.
Okay.
Generally, this is a computer kind of amassing drawing of the actual.
It's pretty different from that, isn't it?
A little bit. It will be well set back.
Okay. Any questions, Mike? Give John a minute. All right. Go on. Good. Any questions from the staff side of that? John?
How many square feet approximately?
I believe it's 2,800 square feet, not including the basement.
And you're within all of the zoning parameters?
Yes, we are.
And the shiplap siding, is that like a traditional cedar siding, or is it like a hardy material?
Either hardyboard or mahogany. So one of the details on more modern contemporary design.
Mm-hmm.
That's mostly on the rear of the house because there's not really room for it on the front because the front has more windows.
And the stone veneer is?
A stacked stone like it shows here. Again, I don't know how much room we're going to have for that because there's mostly windows in the front. But where there is in a light stone, not the kind of western tan type stone, but more of a white stone that's
Like a
whitish
field
gray.
stone, or-
Whitish gray, yes, yeah.
And so generally we confirm those kinds of overall material components. And so when will you know that? When will you know that? How do we confirm that as part of the application process?
That's what I'm going to use to build it.
What the materials are you're actually proposing?
Well, it's going to be mostly stucco with accents in those.
I think John, what material or color?
Well, the proposal is to make a metal roof and.
What color is the metal?
Just like this, the dark
Either
charcoal.
bronze, nothing like red or anything.
No,
Either
like
bronze
charcoal
would be
gray.
it.
Yeah.
Let's make this easy.
Okay.
Okay. I don't say this often, but pick a color,
Charcoal gray.
and if you change your mind, come back.
Okay.
So I think that's where sort of John was heading.
Exactly, right?
All the finishes.
Okay, so if it's charcoal and it's off-white,
Yes.
fieldstone, stone, and the back, and there's no, and I think mahogany, I think color mahogany and the silver roof mahogany, it's going to be a
Yes.
different color.
Yes.
So it's going to be sort of a reddish mahogany or dark mahogany?
Dark, the brownish dark, not red.
Okay, good. So you know what they're going to be. The window treatments look like, whatever, metal things,
Yes.
like no match something.
They're gonna probably be the black frame.
So we have a charcoal roof, we have a dark mahogany finish, wood-like material. In the area, we have a light off-white fieldstone color for the stonework.
Could we say it's something of this nature?
Yeah, maybe a little lighter
It's-
gray, more whites and
This
grays.
is a cultured stone
Ultra
brochure.
stone and off-white. something.
Yeah,
Okay.
Whites and
Light.
grays though, not
Whites
the
and grays,
browns,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, everything is relatively warm, nothing bright or colorful. It's more about
It's just a.
Earth,
it's just a
yeah.
earth thing, right?
earth, yeah. I mean, I like to think of it as more kind of a,
And not that it really matters, but I'm assuming it's black top there, I think black.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
So when we take the earth tones to the cable railing, are we,
well, the cable railings would be obviously stainless steel, but the actual railing posts themselves, plus
Yeah.
introducing a top rail, that would be a mahogany, which kind of tone down.
Industrial.
Consider the shininess of a stainless steel cable rail. But it also, but the cable rail is very transparent, so it's not a busy, let's say, vertical balustered, white vinyl composite railing. It would be very transparent, so if you saw it from a distance, you would see primarily the exterior of the house, and not necessarily from a distance the cabling. And also for the homeowner to see, the surrounding yard and whatever without having vertical balusters in your eyesight.
is the trim of the stucco embedded wood, or is that a profile stucco?
The EPIS material is what I planned on.
There's a window surround indicated in the drawings, is that
That would probably be a wood or,
a composite?
a composite, yeah. But not white, it would be definitely earth tones.
So to pick up what?
But I mean, what you see here is kind of the
So the goal,
similar
the
palette.
goal that John is trying to get to, what's the palette? That's the part you need to have.
We have pictures.
But you gotta make it.
Just for the record.
Okay. Exactly like
Pick
this,
it
except
and
they're
you
more
love
of a gray, white
Pick it.
stone.
And now we have a record of what we've selected.
You want to pick the
Like,
color?
yeah, the white with the black framed windows with the charcoal gray roof and then the white to gray stack stone.
And the garage doors you're thinking are the doors we see here or the doors we see here?
Oh,
No,
not
not
the door,
glass.
not the
That would
glass,
be
the
wood.
white,
Wood doors.
yeah. wood doors.
Similar to the mahogany.
I mean, I like what I see, but
Yeah,
the mandate of this process is to have the selected materials and colors. But whether you change your mind later and come back.
Does that mean a color board
Typically, yes.
with metal chips and, okay.
99% of the color.
Okay. Laura? Any
Or
other?
from a stylistic standpoint, the
Right.
general feeling of the house as
I think we're all good.
I kind of call it a prairie, somewhat of a prairie style feel to it.
Pretty well everywhere.
Well, it's, yeah.
Okay, so, okay, thank you. Any other questions around here? Any questions from the public? Sir?
Mr. Clark, how are you?
Wonderful, Mr. Curry. Would you like to give your name and address for the record?
Hi, yes, I'm Mike Curry, former trustee of the village and neighbor of the house that's going up on Underhill. So we welcome everybody to the neighborhood. I know you've had some feedback from the community about the history of the neighborhood and the age of the house and sort of things fitting in architecturally. And there's great history from my time on the board with preserving as much of the historic trees and the sort of substance and integrity of the
I believe
neighborhood.
I have two of them at the front of the property.
Correct, yes.
One that's in very good shape and one that's in not such great shape.
Right?
And the one that's in not such great shape is probably where the driveway, I probably would have to remove that one to put the driveway in. But I want to keep the other one.
Okay, thank you. We certainly appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in the neighborhood and welcome, but thank you for this.
Okay, any other questions, comments? If there be none, based upon the, Jamie, you have the tablet, down? You got what we talked about for color tablet, right? Okay, good. All right, is there a motion to approve the plan as discussed?
So moved.
Barbara, one approves, Barbara seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried, unanimous, record show, Reggie and Walter are absent. Okay, thank you. Okay, so, let's see, what's going on with, our warning date.
Good evening. For Maple, we are doing some, J.B. Hernandez, architect for the project. We're doing some work interior, but we're here today for the facade that we're changing. There's an existing brick facade that we're going to repoint, and there's an existing, there's a storefront that we're changing to match the adjacent storefront. So basically, we're going to extend the same style with the panel system and white to have the storefront. It's a small store, 400 square feet inside. And on the side and on the back, we're going to do stucco. There is a stucco right now, which is going to redo it. Some pictures of the house, of the building. So this side is all stucco, which is going to redo it. And we're going to go with a set autumn wheat as the color. And dark beige. Darker tone. Yeah, a little bit darker. No, the front is, yes, in the front, and it is stucco right now. So we have a little piece of stucco here. But mostly is we are extending this design, this panel system, into the new storefront.
Rolling door to the go?
Yes.
Not to be big passes, but almost. All right.
So JB, when the stucco comes to the corner, is it, I can't, how is it gonna, is it then going to be like that upper piece where the brick wraps the corner and then the
Yes.
stucco begins?
Actually, it is like that right now. I don't know if you can tell in this picture.
No, I can't see.
Yeah,
I can
but
see
it is.
there on this
Yeah.
road. And there's a door, what do I see just hovering over the parapet on the front?
There is a,
Transit?
yeah, there's a new door.
And
There's
so-
a window, we're changing it for a door.
And so that's like a terrace?
Yes.
Interior terrace
Mhm.
now? Mhm.
We shut roof over that?
Yes. There is, right now there is a balcony, which isn't really used, there's two windows to the balcony.
And the door to the archway is going to be,
You have two doors. You have one going to the store, and this one, you will open that door and it will be, it's like a little vestibule, and you go up 4 step to the main level, 4 or 5 steps to.
So you're moving the door to the sidewalk, to the face of the building, where it isn't, there's not one today?
Right, right where you have the arch, there will be a door, so it will be flat.
So that, the flattened portion of the upper arch, or above the transom, is now at the face of the
Yes,
building?
yeah.
I mean, I was rolling along with you until I realized that.
Well,
So then
we'll
does
bring
the
in,
soffit return, you have that little flat portion of the arch and there's a soffit that returns?
in the inside, we still have the, no, this is just an arch and it's flat inside.
Yeah, but
And what we're doing is,
In the picture of it, the one that's not colored right there, yeah, that's filled in, right?
yeah, but this is all, this is
You have a transom above that.
the transom, this is flat,
Yeah,
because
so
we
that gets
extended,
filled in.
we extended this design
The
across.
address, the number 4,
It's gonna be on a flat surface.
that's at the street now,
Yes.
not recessed like it
Right.
exists today. That's the only, I mean, I think.
Because we're bringing the door out to that level.
Right, which I just realized. And I think everything you've done compositionally, you know, is in the spirit of what the architectural guidelines are suggesting. I just think that the flattened out portion.
But the
of
door-
Why is that there? What does it do?
The-
It simplifies things.
Yeah,
Well, no, it would simplify it if this just got extended.
Or that's the other option.
to extend the,
Yeah.
Yeah, because that way it looks like we just took some brick or whatever it is you're gonna do and fill it in gap.
Yeah.
even extend the same,
I mean, I
yeah.
think that's a bit, right.
Make it look like it belongs to.
Because I think filling in that arch is gonna look like.
So continue the same pediment.
Exactly, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
And and there's gonna be somewhat of a soffit as it returns back to the door, where there's no soffit.
There's no soffit.
So that's even more reason, I think, to do what Joe is suggesting.
Extend the,
Yeah.
It's the same. Okay, good.
Okay.
Any questions for you?
I was just trying to see the elevation of the arches. I think there are steps going up.
yeah.
Right? So you move it from out.
Yes.
So what happens to the steps?
Those steps, they will be inside.
So they will stay.
Yeah, they will
Basically,
stay.
just putting a door.
Right, yes. We're gonna have this element straight, yes.
Good. Good. Any questions from the other side of the table? No? Any questions from the public? No questions from the public. Is there a motion to approve the plans presented with the adjustments that we suggested tonight to remove the arch and extend the facade treatment existing? So who's the, Michael?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Second, Barbara, all in favor? All carried. Good. Thank you. All right, so that takes care of our business as the Board of Architecture review. We will move along to the planning board. And is anybody still here for anybody show up for 200 Main Street yet? If not, we'll hold that till the end and move to 202 North Highland Avenue. Going to seek approval for the conversion of a two-family residence to a three-family residence.
Sort of a moot issue, I think. This is before the zoning board. And the zoning board basically said, you can't have an apartment in the basement. The code prohibits an apartment in the basement. It's already a pre-existing non-conforming building because it's in the NC, but it has a residence on the ground floor where you're supposed to have a business.
Right.
Or non-residential, I should say. The interpretation of the zoning board was that you can't be a three-family because you can't have a basement apartment. You can't have an apartment partially in the basement, partially below, and this is clearly in the basement.
So, we can't do anything.
Right,
There's
exactly.
no approval or variance for us to act on.
That's why we were questioning why we are on to
So
that.
we, somebody should have, building or, you know, whatever the board is going to do next, then this is done. Okay, thank you. Are you going to do another one today? Okay. So we will remove that since the variances were not granted. And we'll move along to Croton Avenue. So, JB, we've come to a point where I think decided that it does not have jurisdiction to grant variances. Things that are not within jurisdiction. There's nothing in the local code that they can vary minimum size of lots. And so there are a couple of properties, at least in the north, that are affected by this anomaly of the ordinance. And so based upon that, I think that the last meeting was the Board of Appeals, pretty much stated, I'm not sure who was there, whether it was presented for his opinion, I got there, but I'm going to turn it over to our council team to explain where we are and what our steps are to move this one way or the other.
So this is a similar application to the Hudson Street, 11 Hudson Street, in which somebody is seeking to build where the zoning code has a minimum requirement in terms of acreage. The applicant, in the case of Hudson Street, the applicant filed for a variance. What the ZBA determined was that they do not have the jurisdiction to vary a requirement that the Board of Trustees has set up for a particular area, in that case the PRD, for a particular area, and that there's no mechanism for either board to come up with a ratio for the density. In other words, I only have 1 acre when I'm supposed to have 3, therefore I can have X amount of dwellings. There's no mechanism for that, and therefore the zoning board said this really should go back to, they recommended, and this is the only board that can send it back to the Board of Trustees. They recommended that these types of things be sent back to the Board of Trustees to make a determination. If the Board of Trustees determine that these acreages are sacrosanct and can't be varied, or can they give the zoning board some type of discretionary latitude in order to perhaps a ratio, or perhaps under certain circumstances a lesser amount of acreage. But right now the statute is black and white. It says you need 3 acres before you can develop. So this is a similar situation to Croton Avenue, where they don't have the acreage that's required to build, to develop the property. So in the case of 11 Hudson Street, the zoning board actually did a decision and determined that they don't have the jurisdiction, recommended sending it back to this board to make a referral to the Board of Trustees.
I'm trying to understand the comment, but I'm trying to understand this is, my client did not make that zoning. There was a different zoning in 2009 that was changed to the zoning. So now we have a lot that it was compliant with the prior zoning.
So, but the same is actually true of 11 Hudson. When the zoning changes, and so the only, if there were an active application, during that time, we could view it under the old zone. We carry it through in similar projects that we've done with that. But since it's a new application, and the new zoning, there's no mechanism for us to do it. So what we're going to discuss tonight as board is actually drafting and making a recommendation to the building district and obtain. One, do they, as Mark described, do they agree that there should be some discretion for pre-existing lots that can conform in some way on a ratio basis or some other way to meet the intent of the ordinance, just they don't have the minimum acreage. I think that's really the issue, because the board of appeals can do almost anything else, but they can't deal with that specific like water. So that's where we are. Now,
So the planning board will refer us to,
we're actually gonna have that discussion at the end. I think, I think the intent of the board has been all along to look for a scaling proposition to make these lots work. So if put words in this board's mouth, we start doing that, some decision will come either soon.
and I think based on that, John, if we did show on the scale.
Well, I think there are at least two examples of why this might work that we can use, from the village board, but it's beyond the control. We always knew it was beyond the control of this board.
Right.
Because we didn't have the scaling capability, but we didn't know that the board of zoning appeals could act in that direction. But since, 11 Hudson Street went before you did, we got the determination that sort of affects you, you would have an application, and anything that might show up in the future.
So, at the end of the war, we will hear from the,
Well, we're gonna see how this all plays out tonight, but since this is sort of, just uncovered from the appeals board said, we can't do this. Sent it back to the planning board, said, well, you're the board that can actually go to the village board, they can't do it, it's an appeals board. So it sounds a little bureaucratic,
And of course it is.
but it makes sense, because, the appeals board, they're not the planning board.
I think the zoning board did this intentionally. They were faced with the proposition of denying this application outright and just saying, we're denied to see you, or maybe the board of trustees should take another look at this. It might work in some instances when we were first creating the zoning code, but there are other instances. So I think what they were looking for is some type of ability to exercise discretion in these type of small properties.
now, we do have, this is only for lot size or the lot width, which is inherent to the same thing? Or are we gonna go to, let's say,
I think those stand on their own.
Yeah, the bulk things, we can certainly vary. We have the authority, both the state law and the ordinance give us that. What we don't have is, the state law really doesn't say anything about lot size. Each individual municipality controls that. And what the zoning board is saying is, it says there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It says 3 acres or
40,000.
It says that, and we don't believe that we have the ability to vary that specific requirement. Width of property, those types of things, provided you meet all of the criteria set forth in the statute for an area variance, they do have the authority. But with regard to the size of the property itself, that's pretty specific in the code.
so I still will have to go to the zoning board for the lot width?
All the other variances you're going to have to get.
But it's not going to make a difference if you get a lot width, but they say, sorry.
Right, no, I'm just trying to figure out, so we just added another entry that we need to deal with, which is.
Oh, you always had that.
Yeah. No, we always knew it was going to the zoning board, and that's where I was hoping.
How much money going there? Because you really don't have it, because unless you build something that actually conforms to the zone.
But I can't, that's what I'm trying to do. The zone says 40,000. I can't come up with 23,000 square feet.
You have to combine properties and do something, right? So, I don't, we thought we should let you know as soon as we try to meet this.
So in order to bring this to the next board, who I will need a referral from?
The planning board of its own right will send a letter to the board saying what requirements that, given the fact that there are anomalies throughout the village, that fall under this minimum requirements lot, the village board willing to entertain
Okay.
But, you know, the engineer.
Mhm.
Okay? So that's
I
what
don't
we
know,
got.
my client say,
So, any questions from the board? No? Okay, so, somebody else.
I'm William Baker, the owner of the property. And what I think I'm hearing the attorney saying that this board cannot now render the recommendation to the ZBA to this because
This board eventually is going to put a, in theory, have a plan, they can go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, or they can judge this on their own merit for the other zoning variances that you need. The one variance that they can't grant is the minimum lot size. That's only if the village board extends that power to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
so I now have to make an appeal.
No, you don't have to make it appeal to the village board. This board, my guess is that this board will send them interdepartment memo to the village board outlining what I said earlier, that there are a number of anomalies that affect the properties in Austin, in the village, that we could improve the ability to development if the Board of Zoning Appeals were given the authority to grant this type of variance with specific criteria.
And it's because it's 11 Hudson Street.
Well, no, it's just you two happen to show up, but if we went to the map and look at properties around the village, we'd probably find more for.
yeah.
So what would the time frame of this be? I mean, is this something new or something?
This is something that's about 2 weeks old. Whatever the Board of Zoning Appeals met last,
June 13th.
and so it's a week, 10 days old. The board found that they did not have the power to render the decision for or against the plan for Hudson. And you guys have the same exact problem, just in a different zone in a different area.
So our next step now is just waiting for some communication from
Yeah.
or the town board and the village board.
So we will, I mean, this will take more than a meeting or two. So we'll not, remove you from any agenda. We'll probably put it on hold so you guys don't keep showing up here and worry about getting kicked off until the village board comes up with its decision.
But
We have
this
to make a-
application, this application was, of course, to be on the agent. And this was new information. There's nothing that we can do to request it.
I mean, I don't know. The first thing we have to do is get a letter from the village board. The village board operates independently of either one of these boards. They may, in fact, say, let's create what the problem really is. And, or they may ask the candidates here to go out and say, so how big of an anomaly is this in the village of Austin? And what can the impact be if we let this happen? I don't pretend to say how the candidates stuff, although I do know they're pretty active about getting it up.
Would we be notified as an applicant with some
That's an
issue of
interesting
concern?
question.
I don't know the answer. I suspect that you would get notification. I don't know that they probably would send it to your architect.
Sure.
I mean, we could ask in the referral that we made that your architect
And
be
owners
advised of
of
I
applicants.
think we can hear two examples of this.
So this is your memo to the board is, this is not a specific for this project, more a general anomaly.
Yeah, well, it's at least two.
There's precedent. In other words, 11 Hudson was a little bit before you, so their variance application came up for a vote on the 13th. But you're in similar
Yeah, no, that's right.
circumstances, so what we're trying to do is package you together because I think it's probably a stronger argument If there are more than one, then the board of trustees can look at it and say, okay, this is the situation throughout the village. There are at least two, there's probably more, and maybe make a decision based on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we will adjourn this pending decision by the board.
And if there any further discussion tonight on it?
No. I mean, I think we pretty much understand this. It's just an issue. Keeps popping up. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Let's go to 6400. Season disturbed, applicant seeking excavation and fill permit in order to construct a two-tier retaining wall.
Well, actually, that has, reviewing the comment from the neighboring, we have changed that, and there's issues with the driveway, being outside the property line or existing driveway. So, in discussion with the client, what we had opted to do is not, to do minor work in the back. There's not gonna be a three-tier wall, it's just gonna be one small wall in the back to help with the grading issues or the erosion issues that he has. There will be no patio, and this all work will be done by hand. There will be no machinery going in the back, and he will install a fence 6 inches inside the property line, so the issue with the parking will go away.
So, Brian, have you seen this?
Yeah, and we have our memo. I mean, we had some technical comments. Really, I mean, broad brush was just, if you look at the section, kind of what this will accomplish. And, you know, if your goal is to have a level yard, you still don't have that.
This process has started because there was some erosion issues, and there was some issues with the neighbors. So at the time, because we were doing all of this, the idea was to also create a patio. Once we start getting issues with,
Exactly, what are you doing? How do you pick down at the bottom?
yeah, that's just that. She's
Okay.
and she's landscape permit,
Okay.
and he will put a fence on the property line, inside the property line.
Okay.
How much fill you excavated?
There's no fill in this.
Nothing's leaving the property.
No.
Nothing's coming on the property.
Right.
Okay. Got it. Anybody any comments?
So the mesa wall you're talking about, so like a block type?
Yeah, we'll bring it by hand.
Okay, any questions from the public? No questions from the
So I'm a
public?
little slow in the draw here. We've got an application for an excavation and fill permit, but we're not excavating nor are we filling.
Right, we have,
Moving there.
Yeah, that,
Okay,
originally they came in.
originally it was a two-tier wall.
This is sort of a different topic that's on the same one. There's nothing new. But just restructuring. That's an administrative issue.
Balance in the universe, what do you call it?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out how we write this resolution. I mean, it's like, they're not really asking for an excavation and fill
No,
permit.
we're asking, it's a BAR. How do you like the wall?
Actually, it was brought to our attention that anything when they're moving any dirt within the property more than 6 cubic yards, still had to go through excavation.
Yeah. That's what I said, not for this, so there's your answer for the resolution. But future agenda, we really think about it.
Well, this, that's
Yeah.
they're retaining walls.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's over 6 feet, you can bring dirt in, or wear it out. You can't.
You did, and they scaled it back.
Right.
They had
So now-
that, so they could close the loop.
But yeah. All right, so So, is there a motion to approve the plan as presented? Any questions from the public? I'm sorry. No questions from the public? Okay, motion to approve the plan as submitted tonight? Okay.
Is there somewhere in this application that says the zoning
All in
board?
favor?
Or
Okay, no opposition?
is there somewhere?
Moved. We're good to go. Approved.
Okay.
All right,
That's what you
JB, thank you.
It's always good to
To 11.
I don't know if I need to make an attorney, I agree everything, I understand everything. I guess I would have one question. When I brought that up to the board, from the purpose of that.
Yep. This board, yeah, you can speak.
You need to have dismissal or
Well,
show
yeah,
I need
you can submit something as to why you believe that's right, but I don't know if you heard the whole conversation, but when we get to our, not to be inclusive, not to be, you know, to include.
I mean, I have some other thoughts, I really know it's going well, I think there's some other ones you might want to look at while you're bothered. For example, you know, what was the Humpty Road, building like 200 kilometers minimum width, I think there ought to be a few sheds.
There are actually.
Are they built in? Is the maximum width? Okay, my bad.
Doesn't mean it happens.
Well, it could only happen on the Tesla site, but I think if it does happen, it's nice to
There are
have
other
a minimum.
places around, yeah.
Well, it's PRD, this is the only PRD.
Oh, yeah, but it happens in other places.
Yeah.
Where we have mass scale sites. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you. All right. They did, they decided they didn't have the jurisdiction. And they sent it back to us because we have the role of recommending changes to those laws.
The other issue with that is in the table, in the appendix, it says that in that zone, you can't have multifamily housing, which seems a little odd since you're allowing 6 dwelling units per acre.
It's a good, actually is multi-bit.
Yes.
I think it's a little bizarre that neighborhood business districts can't have neighborhood. Don't mind, but- Okay, so let's move on to 185 North Highland Avenue, Route 9 Enterprises, after seeking site plan approval for excavation and permit to install new dispensers, new tanks, and complete associated site improvement. Sir.
Good evening. Mark Colada, Prime Engineering, 664 Blue Point Road, Holston, New York. Engineer for the applicant. For those not familiar with the site, it's the site is located at 185 North Highland Avenue. It's currently a vacant gas station, and the applicant is seeking to install new tanks and islands and associated appurtenances with those tanks. And I guess the only other note I want to make is the tanks were pulled out in approximately the fall of 2015, and after submitting the application for the new tanks, we were told we had to come for site plan approval, so that's why we're here today.
So the above-ground components that we would see, the actual pumps, are the locations changing from what we?
They are changing very minor. The canopy's going to, the canopy's going to remain. Canopy columns are going to remain, and just sort of the spacing.
So, I was actually in the planning board the first time.
How long ago was that?
Last century.
Okay.
And the one thing that is the new is this going to be a 24-hour.
I'm not 100% certain on that.
So, now, this is conditional use in this neighborhood or?
Permitted use. That's my understanding.
Okay, let me keep going. So one of the things that was clear was that there's a residential community, residents right across the street. So there was a provision in the approval last time, that at 11 o'clock, the bright lights got dim. It's because it's a neighborhood, it's not a shopping mall. So, it's a business since it's been fallowed for so long. You know, all those existing buildings we start from scratch. So clearly should we get that. The rest of it is pretty much going to look like it did before, right? You've got parking lot. I'm not so sure, but I guess parking there. What are we doing about the curve?
The curve in the street?
The curve, yeah, and the sidewalk.
We're,
What kind of shape are they in, Joe?
That was only my understanding, is that it's going to be redone and changed.
that's not what the plans currently reflect. I don't think they'd have an issue with replacing it. I was at the site prior to the meeting, and I do recall this apron being in pretty tough shape.
Yeah, it's sort of a hodgepodge there. There's about 800 feet of sort of really rugged terrain, and we should do what we can to fix it. But other than that, and the lighting, I don't really have any issues. We got screening along the residential property, that was in pretty bad shape.
Can we go back to the 24-hour question, because I think that how to frame that question has changed. And it's changed by the fact that credit card operated self-dispensing pumps are open 24 hours. Unless you're a brand that provides an attendant. Color, we kind of had we have some locations that you can buy gas 24 hours a day.
With no attendant on site?
Right. You don't know until you go up. Sometimes they're shut off, sometimes they're operating.
Which is where I'm headed. That would be,
dark.
understanding that operational envelope lends itself to answering Joe's original question.
I think I can say for the applicant that if they were planning on 24 hours, there would always be an attendant on site.
So the store would be open?
Either the store would be open or there would be a drop box to accept transactions. I've actually never seen a gas station like that, so.
It's actually not permitted by state. You have to have one attendant because they have to be able to have the access to shut the pumps off and then use them.
Oh, good.
Well, then I'm not telling you where I'm going.
Yeah,
It's another one of those things you can use, but okay. All right, so
Maybe I'm
anyway.
not supposed to.
Okay, well,
yeah, I believe there's supposed to be a certificate of fitness holder at the station, that's why.
all right, so from a physical point of view, nothing's really changing, we're digging a hole, we're burying tanks.
You're going
Correct.
to service the lot.
Correct.
We do the curbing and sidewalks where, to the, let's see, I don't know. Who does it?
Actually, you're going to do it through the state, rather than state law.
Somebody's got to tell the state. They generally, inside of.
I think it would be handled as a maintenance item, we'd say, we want to fix our apron.
Yeah, non-utility permit with
Let's
DOT.
just make sure. So, Joe, I guess you guys, in essence. I don't know. who runs-
Yeah, I mean,
Who
for,
runs about roads and stuff?
normally that's all done by the village engineer,
So
but
you'll, but we're not.
he's going to have to get the approvals from the state.
But anyway, let's tell them they have to do it. Somebody needs to write them a memo.
Do we have proposed signage, or how are you going to treat the canopy in the convenience store?
That will be a separate application.
Okay. Is the canopy going to be new?
No.
Okay. All
So
right.
if this were to get approved, they would install the tanks, start selling gas, and a subsequent application for any canopy modifications, signage, facade would be submitted to the
Is
village.
there a plan that would reopen the garage, or it's always going to be the convenience?
It's currently not a garage.
It'll stay a convenience store?
Correct.
Okay.
So, just let me ask, secret?
We probably need a short. We have to do a short part.
You submitted a long EAF.
I believe I submitted both.
We had no comments on the EAF. Just a comment about the parking, you are removing 4, you have 11 or 12 spaces existing. Do you see any issues as far as the function of the site, having fewer parking spaces?
I
do not.
So that's a good point. Because I think there's plenty of parking spaces based on the convenience store. The last guy thought he was in the used car business.
We would happy to make that a condition of the approval.
I like the bar for retail.
Yes.
If I go to these, I can't park there anymore.
Right. I mean, it's expensive.
I believe someone took down the orange fence, if that's the one you're referring to.
Okay, so, are we exhausting questions from the board?
So nothing is really changing from what you had earlier.
Correct, the layout is not changing, it's new tanks is really what's going on.
And a couple less parking.
Yeah, the parking spaces that were referred to were the ones right along here. We can strike those back.
So they're not, okay, so the dotted lines are gone, right?
Yeah, they're existing and they would be removed.
Okay. Good, all right. Any questions from the public? Any other questions from the public?
Yeah, you have an application for a excavation.
Correct.
Okay, so how much are you excavating?
Big enough for the tank.
I can tell you in gallons.
Cubic feet will work.
And you have to do the conversion, off the top of my head, I do not know that, but I can get you that.
If you can get that,
Yeah.
and you're not bringing in any fill from one side?
No.
Well, the answer is you're likely bringing in control fill.
There's pea gravel that goes around the tanks and the lines, so it's,
Are all the tanks buried now?
the tanks that were removed in 2015.
So you gotta clean all out. Okay. All right. Okay.
So anything you bring in will be certified as good.
Correct.
Okay, so that's part of the resolution. All right, so, any other questions from the public or any from the board? Is there a motion to approve the plan as presented with the following conditions? One is that a record of the amount of earth / rock sand removed and the amount of fill that's being returned on the 6-foot electricity. That the lighting, at 11 p.m. the gas station is going to be longer than that. That the curbs and sidewalks for you to be district covered and repair. And I think that's.
Sale, is there a condition about not selling?
No use cars.
Oh, yeah, and that that this approval does not extend to used car.
Just one question or one clarification on the lighting.
Yeah. I think it's like 5 or something.
Okay. Today's LED lighting is a lot better than yesteryear's lighting, and it can really shut out the property line.
That's
So,
fine. So, again, I don't think that's the street, right, but I'd say 5 or 10. I mean, there's a statute about there's actually regulations. We can have to find out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so given those conditions.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you. Okay, 25 Terrace Avenue. Boy, we're getting a lot of homework. Excavation and fill permit to construct a driveway and retaining.
Basically, we have two-family home that does not have a parking, so the homeowner would like to provide two parking per each family, so therefore we're proposing is construction of new driveways and 4 parking spots. That will require excavation fill of 177 cubic yards to be removed. And that's why we're here.
Okay, and no variance is required?
No, I mean, we all put 4 feet from the property line as required for the driveway.
Okay.
It looks, I know you're proposing porous pavement,
Correct.
which helps with the storm waters, but it does count towards your lot coverage.
Right,
So
we
even
did
though you're-
calculate it.
It looks like, whatever the minimum is, I mean, most of the lot will be paved now or rooftop, so.
Right, but even with that, we're still 31% and allowed is 40%.
That's impervious,
Correct.
I mean, just graphically, it looks like there's a little bit more than that, so I would say maybe recheck and
Well,
definitely count it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, my name is Carlos Vega, but we are at 52%. However, the new porous pavement, it allows us, I think it's able to retain, once we do the calculation, we are at 31.5%, but you are correct. It is at 50%, but however, that's why we decided to use our porous pavement. But to mitigate the water issues, the water runoff, we are providing 2 cool-tech units at the bottom of the driveway.
Yeah, I know it does mitigate your stormwater,
Right.
Absolutely. It's your zoning lot coverage. It still is a paved material, and it still counts towards the coverage.
Porous pavers have a lesser coverage.
I think it's the word stated instead of PR.
I don't think the zoning sees this through the stormwater lens. The zoning just sees this through an impervious, however it quantifies impervious.
Correct.
Well, there is another line for maximum building coverage, which is also 30%. And right now, the building coverage is 17.9%.
Yeah, building, that's
Right.
separate than your paved
Right.
parking.
So this is a good idea. The question really goes down to, because I think, well, I don't know, we're gonna know rattle with this versus, like lot requirement, but it's something that isn't, maybe the variance.
No, I think you can get a
We
variance.
can get a variance. So,
Yes.
to be sure, since, maybe you and Brian need to get together and sort this out, if the decision of the village is that, yes, the interpretation doesn't recognize permanent versus impervious or retaining, then if you want to decide to go to zoning appeals, in your variance more than 10%.
But for example, if you use those pavers that have a grass in the middle, they count half.
Right, and we understand the concept from that side, right? And I think in many cases, and this may be another example, zoning language is lagging behind impervious surfaces as they progress. But the other side of this is if you pave the entire yard with a scientifically impervious surface, I think zoning still wants to recognize what is that going to look like. And so there would still be some gauge about how you're covering the surface of the lot. And I think this falls somewhere in between.
Okay, so, can we adjourn?
I think we have a choice.
We have to go for zoning or?
Well,
I think the first thing is, our planning engineer and the village engineer need to get together with you and your project manager to agree on what it is you're doing. And if it meets the zoning requirements, then next month is easy to come back to you and we agree. If it doesn't, do this very quickly, by the way. If it doesn't, you're gonna wanna slip yourselves into the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, which is before ours, so that you can be back here in July and get approved. So don't waste a lot of time
And
on this decision.
just beyond more what the planning board might be interested in, I know we asked for topography, because looks like, is it an 8-foot wall at the, close to the property?
It's about 7 feet.
Pretty significant between the house and the
Right.
neighboring property. So we do have comments about just refining the plan, making it more clear about what the final product will look like, especially with that neighboring driveway right on the other side of the property line.
The highest point is here, it just goes less.
So you have the topography to know that?
Well,
So
we
the 8-foot
did
wall
measure,
between
but
the-
we will provide a topography.
I mean, so that was, the next series of questions is, either way, it's a large footprint suddenly, right? You're putting back there, and is how are you going to accommodate the grade change? And it sounds like
I
we're
think we're finding out that, yeah, well, there's also, I don't know what the average, maybe the average is less than 6 feet, but if the average is more than 6 feet, then it becomes filming. Another interesting anomaly. So I think there's enough work for you guys to quickly with Brian.
All right, so we'll
Yeah,
make an appointment.
let's try to hash it all out and figure
All right.
out, you know,
Okay.
between the board and zoning appeals and this and July. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. 63 South Highland Avenue. Applicant is seeking to add 2 parking spaces in the front yard of an existing 2-family residence in the since parking.
If not, may I borrow someone's?
Yeah.
I'll say get back to the office before. No, the plan, unless you can. Thanks, no problem.
I'll begin. My name is Stephen, I'm the architect for the applicant, John Carbone, who owns the property at 63 South Highland. And the drawing you have, thank you very much, appreciate it. Drawing you have shows 2 parking spaces proposed for the front yard. There are several variances that are required for this application. We need to go to the zoning board for pre-existing issues on the lot. I met with the planner, I met with the building department, went through all of the pre-existing issues, had a preliminary meeting. There's lot width issues, there's lot size issues, there's existing rear yard to a detached garage, existing side yard to the house. There are variances we have to go for. The applicant or the owner would like to propose a 470 square foot studio apartment in the basement. It's a PO applicant, it's PO zone, which is allowed. That's in an NC, it's not allowed.
You can't have an apartment in the basement, period.
Where's that? I'm sorry.
Just wait, I'm Stephen.
No, I heard that, but that was regarding the NCs. In the NC zone, it specifically says it says you can't have it below a professional. In an NC zone, you can't have an apartment below the commercial use. This is a PO zone, and it's all residential.
What we talking about is not.
Is it something different?
It's not, it's a residential.
Okay. I met with Lynn and went over this and vetted this whole thing. So I'm not sure if there was some other item that we were looking at, but maybe I can go through.
Okay, I mean, I think, you know, only what our interpreters will be ready to.
Of course.
The dilemma you have,
Yes.
first and foremost, is, you know, the addition, is a big deal.
It's not. There's no. I mean, there's no addition to the house.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, there's no addition.
Sticking in the car.
It's an existing basement with the 7-foot or greater ceiling height, access from the upper floor. It's enough to fit a studio apartment in there, so we're just renovating it.
Right, okay. So,
Only the NC zone specifically says no basement, partially or fully basement apartments. The PO has no specific language to
oh,
it.
yeah. All right.
So with that in mind,
That's the one there is,
right now, yes. It's in our favor. So with that in mind, what we did was we proposed the studio apartment here. We did need 2 additional spaces. There's 2 units, dwelling units in here currently. It's a 2-family house. One of the other requirements is in your purview is to grant hopefully a conditional permit to make it a multifamily because of this additional dwelling unit. That, in addition to the excavation, is why we are here. But the bottom line is we have 2 exterior spaces here, 2 in an enclosed, detached garage rather, and we're proposing 2 additional here. The restrictions are front yard, you cannot have park spaces in, plus also the building inspector is allowed to grant that under certain circumstances, however, not if it is completely in the front of the building. When I went through this with Lynn, they said that basically there are other precedences and other applications that are coming forth where the parking space is literally right in the front of the building. Because this is off-centered, it wouldn't be considered that. Regardless, we need a variance for in the front yard setback. So,
yeah.
however that's interpreted. Did I?
And that doesn't encroach upon village property, those 2 spaces?
No, they're not, no, this is the property line right here.
And the right of way.
Yeah, then the right of way begins right here. There's 2 driveways here, side by side, somewhat shared. It's a very steep driveway here. There really is nowhere else to put anything in the back.
I think we need to hear from the board of zoning.
Absolutely.
Pretty minimal.
Well, the conditional use, right, and then there's the fill, but yes, I understand. The zoning board has the bigger task, yes. And I know it's not necessarily your purview or your area that you would ask for precedence or ask for character of the neighborhood. I know that's under the zoning, but just to make a point that on 54, 56, and 52 South Highland, there's parking in the front yard, which essentially is right up the road.
Yeah, we don't have one of them yet.
Oh, I won't ask. Okay, maybe I should, but there is precedence on the street. And the other thing to say is that the owner, and I know you didn't have to make a decision tonight because you need to hear the zoning board, the owner's trying to do this right. There are houses, as we know, along this have multifamily, 3-4 families in there.
I think we just need to find the right vehicle to do it right. So, I think you're heading in the right direction.
Hopefully this is it.
Right, board? Okay.
Is there anything that this board grants contingent on ZBA approval, or do you need to go there and come back here?
Well, until they give you the variances, if you need it, it doesn't matter what we,
The statute says that you have to go to the zoning board and get the approval of the zoning.
And come back. That's what I was asking. Okay, understood.
Good presentation for Chris.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your help.
Okay.
Is there any public comment?
Yes, sir. Oh, before you go away. Yeah, sure. Sorry. Any comments?
Should I come up and use the mic?
If you want to be on camera, come on in front.
You have no choice. It's at the back of the room.
Thank you. My name is John Van Steen. I live at 78 South Highland Avenue. I also have a residence in the PO zone, and mine is currently a 2-family. It's also, as we know, in that zone, it can be zoned commercial. That's one of the zones coming into the gateway of Ossining. It does have historic content. It's got some gorgeous homes in there. And to start paving all of the front yards of all of the homes along this way, I think, the zoning or the planning board may wish to decide whether it wishes to turn this into a fully commercial district or whether it does want to have this as some type of gateway to Ossining. Certainly, when I bought my home, it's a larger home on the essentially on the same street. But I was directed by the planning department that whatever I wanted to do, I had to have my parking in the backyard. So I couldn't put in playthings for my kids at the time. I had to have the parking in the back. Currently, he's got a 2-car garage. There are 2 other spaces. This is a 2-family. He wants to expand to put in a studio downstairs. Well,
there is parking on the streets, and he can't apply for, the people that go into this can't apply for permits because he doesn't have the parking there. So it's not an impossible thing, and it's not as if you can't put in the extra studio apartment. But I don't believe it's right for that neighborhood and for the community itself to grant parking in the front yard. Just think of all of these buildings along that way. We know that a couple of them have this so-called front yard parking, and there are certain reasons as to why a couple of them do. But that's not really a thing that we want, at this section of Nottingham, unless we want to change the whole tenor of the town. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
May I ask a question, actually, in regards to the gentleman just asked? On South Highland, there's parking in front of his house? There's legal parking allowed in front of his house?
In front?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
I thought that's what you had said. I think you said there's parking on the street, because I don't know that.
Parking on the street, on the side streets.
Right, the side streets, which he's not adjacent, he's not a corner lot, but,
No,
so,
that's-
okay, I understood. I just want to make sure. Okay, thanks.
All right. All right, so, Plateau Associates. We'll see, can we start with this person? All right.
Pardon?
He's trying to do everything illegal.
Good evening, David Vendin, attorney for the applicant, Plateau Associates. We had previously, my firm submitted, dated June 9th, about 2 weeks ago, a memo to special counsel, the village, the planning board, and the planning department on access, as Mr. Stout had requested that we give him our recitation of what we believe supported our contention of access to this property. I hope that it was what you were looking for, and I hope that it was persuasive. I'm certainly anxious to hear how you opine on what I submitted to you. We only submitted it with respect to the main road access. There is a change in engineering that Mr. Bertay is going to go through with you that eliminates the floodplain road, and he'll go through that with you. So this access memo only addresses access from Water Street onto what's known as the North Water Street extension. Before Mr. Bertay gets...
Clear, the memo you said relates to the road.
Yes, correct, the lower road.
The upper road is what we're going to talk about. The secondary.
Yes, but as soon as I just want to add a couple comments before I hand Mr. Bertay on. I know that a memo was received from the HPC, and I just wanted to point a few things out, and this comes not from my historical knowledge, but from speaking to my client, and obviously this is either a matter of record or not, but the memo says that it requests the Planning Board Commission, in one instance, an independent engineering study of the field office and blacksmith shop by an engineer specializing in historic preservation, and that photos of the exterior and interior of the buildings be taken. Well, we've already done the photographs, but the study itself I'm told, was completed and submitted to the building department of the planning board in 2015. And in fact, the client informed me that they were there with the engineer as he pushed his pen through 3 courses of brick in the office building, not the mortar, but the bricks. I'm told also that approximately $70,000 of engineering studies were submitted to the HPC. Next thing they talked about was, also I submitted to this board the study from Petrocelli Engineering analysis of the structural unsoundness of the remaining buildings. They also asked an independent feasibility study to relocate the buildings to the location of the proposed open-air monument or similar location. Again, I'm told this was done and submitted to the HPC in 2012. It was one of several studies that was commissioned, in the context at that time of local landmarking. And again, the study that we submitted also showed the structural problems with the buildings and with relocating them. An independent feasibility study of measures to mitigate flooding per FEMA's requirements for historic structures. I'm told, again, this was submitted to the HPC in 2012. I'm also told, and this is anecdotal, I wasn't there, that at some point the HPC indicated they had not even reviewed or looked at the studies. But that this study opined that the amount of alterations necessary to make the structure water and floodproof would alter the buildings to such an extreme degree that they would no longer be considered landmarks at any rate. You know,
Can I ask you a question, David?
Sure.
Have you examined the reports?
No, I just got a lot of this information recently. I have not seen the reports myself. They go back to 2012. I'm sure that we can get them, and you know, if you don't have them as part of your record, which you should, you know, we'll be happy to track them down.
I don't know. I'm guessing we would have them.
No, we wouldn't, because when was the last time the board officially acted on this?
2014.
So anything 2015, yes,
We'll,
I don't remember asking any of those questions, so.
okay. Well, you know what, how about we track them down for you?
I think actually, as we proceed through the SCIS,
Yeah.
I think those are very important documents.
Yes, and I think they're referenced in numerous places in
them.
them.
Part of your case to.
Yes. I also wanted to point out, because you had mentioned that it might be good to have a checklist of sorts with respect to things that would satisfy the ordinance, particularly as it pertains to the type of public benefits that this would provide in this, as required in this zoning district. And I am referring, and I won't read the whole thing, to a June 19th, 2017 letter from directly from the applicant to the entire board, the Board of Trustees, the Planning Board Chair, and I'll skip over to the parts that relate to the type of benefits, and I'll provide, at least for the record, a brief summary. That, unfortunately, I need my reading glasses again. Don't laugh. Okay, A, provide a significant connection for the Riverwalk network, creating almost a quarter mile of compliant pedestrian access from the Snowden Avenue intersection almost to the front entrance of the Crow-Bucky Preserve. Improves North Water Street as a physically compliant roadway from North Water Street extension almost to the front entrance of the Crow-Bucky Preserve. Offers to upgrade the village's North Water Street extension to become a physically compliant roadway. Establishes the creation of a pavilion extolling Ossing's history and its position as an industrial and economic center in the lower Hudson Valley. Hidden Cove on the Hudson will be the first project and site plan approval that would be in full compliance with the village's waterfront redevelopment plan of 2009. Proposes the creation at Plateau at the applicant's expense of a much-needed parking lot to benefit the village and the local community and neighborhood on Lot 6, the former sewer treatment facility, and at no small expense. This proposal, which requires village board approval, would create several additional important public benefits, including it would ease the parking situation at the Snowden Avenue playground, offering a safe location for families and visitors to park, provide needed parking for visitors to the Crow-Bucky Preserve, provide parking for visitors to the Ossining segment of the Riverwalk network, allow for the North Water Street extension to be relocated so that it no longer encroaches on the Virium condominium property if the village were to cooperate in placing the roadway wholly on village property. Eliminate the requirement that the village relocate its pump station, a requirement or potential need which was placed in a deeded right-of-way and obstructed it. Allow for the screening of the pump station to eliminate an eyesore, and that would help the aesthetics of the neighborhood. Offer an expedient resolution to the remediation of the toxic condition of the former sewer treatment facility located on the site by covering it with an asphalt cap. One form of proper remediation is an impervious surface. And provide a gateway to the north of Snowden Avenue quadrant detailed in the village's waterfront redevelopment plan. In addition, there's going to be historic preservation. They've already undertaken, my understanding is a photographic, as requested, a photographic history that will be offered to the Historical Society and to the village with respect to the building before it came down and the remaining buildings. And certainly to the extent that the village had any, or the Historical Society had any desire to have the artifacts in the remaining buildings that are proposed to be demolished, those would certainly be offered to the village and to the Historical Society. So I think that touches on a lot of the spirit and intent and letter within the development in that district, as far as creating public, recreational, and historical benefits to the community.
The date of that outline?
I'm sorry?
The date of that letter, the outline?
Yes, this was dated June 19th, 2017, and was sent in to Lynn at the Planning Department for distribution to the mayor, to the Board of Trustees, to the Planning Board Chairman, to the Austining Planning Board, to the Village Clerk, and to Austining Corporation Council.
And who penned the letter?
Plateau Associates. It came directly from the applicant.
So we haven't seen any of the, is it fair to say, and I'm kind of looking around everything, that some of these notions have come up, some of them seem new, but I may have missed something or forget something. But we've never seen I don't recall seeing a comprehensive plan that extends out, that highlights all of these elements that are outlined in that letter. But I could be mistaken.
Well, a number of them are detailed within the recent SEIS that was submitted to the board. Actually, it was submitted more than 2 meetings ago, but I think only at the last meeting was that evening a disc given to the board, so I don't know how much in depth you got into that, but much of it, and the applicant, correct me if I'm wrong, is touched upon within the SEIS that has been submitted. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Paul Berthet to talk about some of the re-engineering that he's doing.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
just for clarification?
Sure.
You have a whole series of proposed improvements to what we're calling Lot 6.
Yes.
Lot 6, as I recollect on the map, is that piece of village, that parcel of village land.
Yes.
That is, will you point to it? I know where it is, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. The purposes.
I think it's down by kind of the corner of the
Yeah,
entrance.
I think you're right, Mike. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not aware of that proposal before, where you're going to put parking on there and so forth. Has that been?
Yes, if you look at section 1.8 of the SEIS that was submitted, additionally, the applicant will apply to the Village Board of Trustees for permission to improve at applicant's expense a limited portion of North Water Street that crosses the lot known as Section 3, Plate 2, Block 1, Lot 6, which is owned by the village. It was all detailed within the...
Right, but did that include basically taking that land and making it a whole parking lot and so forth? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a parking lot, it's shown here.
So that's a new concept on this go-round in the last couple of months. Is that right?
Yes, we haven't
Yeah.
introduced it yet on the plans. This is the first time we're introducing it.
Right, that's
It
what I was
hasn't
going to
been-
say. I
Yes.
don't
It
recall-
was only in the narrative, but not on the plan.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah,
thought. I
that's
didn't
why I
recall
asked
ever
the
seeing
question.
that.
I've never seen some of these things.
And
It may have
that's
been
not
on-
on any plan that you've yet submitted, right?
I don't know if that's, if I can say yes or not, but in the last
Mr.
couple of months,
Stellanos?
we haven't.
It's never been reflected in the official plans that have been presented, but it had been discussed. It had been brought
I
up.
think I was fair to say, some of these notions may have come up over the years,
It was
but I've
something
never
that
seen them compiled comprehensively.
we felt at the
And-
time that, just making the board aware of certain things that could be done to improve the gateway to the northern quarter, but we've never officially had it reflected in the plan.
Yeah.
And as per the chairman's request, I think this is the time to make this compilation to show that we're complying with the spirit and intent of the zoning code and looking to offer some significant improvements and benefits to the village and its residents. Mr. Berthet, Paul Berthet, Pipestone Engineer, will talk about some of the engineering changes and redesigns that are in progress.
Good evening. We met with the fire chief and the water department with help, coordination from Lynn, to discuss the access and fire access to the building. And the result of that, we made some building changes to accommodate the fire trucks for the village as well as access in and out. And we just wanted to, there's a lot of engineering, re-engineering that's going on right now in terms of what those impacts are on the site plan, but we at least appreciate you giving us the time to discuss where we are today in advance of submitting a new engineering application. Previously, the plan called for a ring road around the entire structure to provide access. In discussion with the fire chief, access is required across the front, as long as there is access to the end of the building. There's a pivot on the ladder that's about 70 feet from the end of the building, which is what we used as a design parameter. By eliminating the bump out on the far end of the building, bringing access across to the front, we're able to meet the requirements of the fire chief to access this during a emergency event. We're also providing a turnaround, which is also part of the previous plan to have a ring road around by utilizing an at-grade turn. Either the trucks can pull straight in, access the building, or they can come in and back in. Either way, we meet the intent and the regulation for the both the state and the village's requirement for fire access.
So you checked the horizontal measurement around the building for the state fire code?
Well, no. Excuse me?
There's an emergency vehicle access section in the state fire code, not the state building code.
Right.
State fire code. That, is this classified as a high-rise building?
It's sprinklered. It's a sprinklered building, which
I think it's, I don't know where you are in your vertical measurement, but you are likely at least at the threshold. So, and I don't know, I don't recall, but for the most remote point that you can land a truck, there's a maximum amount measured horizontally around the building footprint that you either meet or you don't meet.
right.
I suspect that was the driver for the original loop road.
Probably. But I do know, was it 2 or 3 Fridays ago that you actually sat down and met with the fire chiefs to go
Right,
over
on
that?
June
And I'm not disputing
No,
that.
sure.
But you still gotta meet the other part.
Yeah,
Beyond and above the desire
I think
of the
John is right. I think that, the fire department's gonna say what's workable, but I need to figure out what the law requires,
Sure.
because you're gonna get no play at all if you say, well, the fire chief said it was okay.
Right.
Well, the threshold for a high-rise building is 75 feet. So if
And
you're
we're-
above 75 feet, you're a high-rise.
We're under that. We're at, right now we're at 69, I believe.
You're measuring from average grade.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the code's gonna build
You
it.
guys
I'll,
will figure it out.
You'll
I'll
figure
confirm
it.
that, yeah.
So what is it 150 feet from where you're going at, you recall?
150.
There is a lot of factors into figuring it. It depends. You get credits from the state on the size of the building, the square footage, and all depending on access to all sides of the building.
So you're
have
gonna
to get credits.
verify.
So that has to all be worked out as a plan.
Obviously, we have to comply with state code.
Yeah, so who in your shop?
Joe Tremelli has been reviewing this.
It's actually, he's the expert, right? So we need. Right? This is a big deal. These guys are gonna build a building, you know.
Yeah, we
Find
have it.
out when they come down and go, oh, man, we're gonna be great.
Well, remember that when they're talking to the fire chief, they're only talking about how they maneuver their trucks on. They don't make the determination
Right.
of
That's where I was
enforcing
saying.
what's the state code.
Was Joe at the meeting?
Yeah.
Joe was at the meeting. Because I found at other meetings where Joe comes, he's very good about reciting state code.
I think that's important.
We just haven't reviewed this iteration yet. In the last one, we gave a thorough look at, we just haven't.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, was the elimination of the loop road was the fire chief's idea?
It was a combination of not being utilized by the fire trucks and that they weren't going to use that for access. And once that kind of flushed out, there was,
Yeah.
We need your company to cite what needs to happen.
Okay.
I need to know from us. You know,
And I think from an
we'll
engineering
submit that
perspective,
on when we submit our.
It was problematic to have that loop, that other road, the emergency access road to the code that the village was saying that they wanted to have it improved to.
For the road around the building?
No, the access road that was cutting down the plateau.
Yeah, we'll get to that one.
And I think the other narrative, the other important narrative is for Joe to at least, at this meeting, to at least describe the trajectory of how the loop road evolved out of the plan. For everybody's sake, we need to understand exactly what intersections were driven through and what milestones were marked.
I mean, you're talking about putting the fire out, and I'm wondering how the fire truck is going to come in from Snowden Avenue to get to the fire. I mean, they're putting choices for the car.
But I can tell you, that's the least of these issues, right? They'll get it. They get the shadow month, they can get it.
Right.
So I'm not worried about the fire truck getting in and out, I'm worried about, how we meet what the fire code and the fire building code.
I can't get my car into Sherman.
I'll show you how to do it.
Later.
If I may for a moment, we are nowhere near as high as Harbor Square, and access to Harbor Square is similar, if not as defined as we are presenting. It's really, all I want to have is a statement from somebody who's a professional, paid professional, that says this works. Well, Paul had the meeting with Chermelli. That's right, but as John pointed out, how do we get there? Because you and I are both going to want to know that in years to come. How did we eliminate the ring road? What effect does that have going forward? Just the code. The ring road was never part of the code. It was always excessive of the code.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The ring road was never a requirement.
I think my understanding is that it was.
No, it wasn't. You're wrong. We meet the requirements of the state. We meet the requirements of the state without the ring road.
Then I think it's fair to ask for the narrative. If that's the narrative, then I think that's all we're asking. You're saying that it was never required, and that you've withdrawn that,
but I feel
what you previously proposed.
It's also unfair that you make an assumption that it was a requirement. The ring road was a requirement. It never was a requirement. It was on the plan.
It was on the plan.
I
think we had dialogue over the years about it being emergency.
We all know that what's on the plan is not always what is a requirement.
It's our
excess.
It's our position that this complies with the state code and also complies with the village
That's what we need.
fire department for access, with a sprinkler building that we're
Kelly
proposing.
Sessions and you agree,
Right.
we're happy.
Exactly. Okay, so those are the changes. It reduced the bump in the building. The parking structure got reduced. We're taking some spaces that were inside the building and putting them at grade. We're able to bring this parking lot grade at a higher elevation as we come down to the east. The retaining walls formerly were in excess of almost 30 feet high. Because we're able to eliminate that road, we have a little bit more flexibility with using the structure, creating parapet walls, and reducing those wall heights to a maximum of 14 feet. Our critical point still remains at the corner of the property line, but again, we're still proposing that we have access now to maintain this at the property outside of the building. We're still having a roof garden. We're still proposing at-grade gardens for the first floor residential units, and rooftop garden that will be also part of the stormwater management plan. So the second major change that we're under design is the elimination of the flood access road by improving the access from North Water Street to a point where the fire department is able to drive their fire trucks through a depth of water that their trucks can go through, similar to the projects. And some of that will require regrading of the adjacent parcel. So
Your adjacent parcel or other people's adjacent parcels?
no, adjacent parcel of Santucci property.
So you're going to encourage them to
Well, our applicant has access to its
So
property.
just trying to understand.
Sure.
So you have the ability to do this.
Right, so part of what we're also trying to work through here is speaking with the Santucci owners and discussing alternatives to, while we're raising this road outside of an elevation where or to an elevation where the fire trucks can pass during a flood event, which is anywhere between elevation above 8. Elevation is, 100-year flood elevation is 10. That would allow the fire trucks in and out. We're not requiring the secondary flood access road that met up on Solitude, up towards Solitude Lane. Solid dirt? Yeah, it's the dirt road that kind of looks up.
I forget, so Dave, as we go through this, since this is sort of new to the grading part, and it's on an adjacent property owner, you can address that somehow for us, so we have the document, because this is how it's going to flow, and you have the authorization
Yes.
to do that?
Well, we are in the
We don't
process.
need this till we get a final site plan.
Yeah, we're working on that right now with the
Trying not to
Santucci.
lose track of these things.
Yes.
And that,
Yes.
Right.
And well, you point out, I'm very sorry, but on that road that we're talking about, who else accesses that road besides this property?
The Diamond Dairy at the end.
Filex? Well, it's now
Yeah,
sold.
those properties that are.
We call it affectionately the old guys.
there's a list of properties at the end.
So that really, that will inure to their benefit also in the case of the flood, because they wouldn't have had our access road anyway. So that is helpful to them in the event of a fire hazard during a flood event.
Disputing the value,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
how do we document that?
And,
it's okay to do it?
which is the reason why we didn't make a submission yet, because we're still trying to work those details out.
Including how that property owner would get to their property while you're improving the road.
Exactly, there's gonna be a phasing plan and how we're maintaining access to these back properties. All those details will have to be part of this, with developing that road to the town standards. An alternative that we would, if the town would support, in improving the access road to the property, is a potential realignment of this road. Now, again, that's a legal issue with the private property owner. Yeah, up towards North Street, the Santucci property, the block building that's adjacent to.
Some communities have it anyway, right? Isn't that what you were talking about earlier, about relocating the pump station, et cetera? Is that what we're talking about?
No, pump station is up here. There's an existing building that's part of the Santucci property.
How would the village make somebody improve their private property?
No, they won't.
I don't know, I mean, I'm just saying that that's an issue.
Right.
So, but you raise an interesting question. So, how integral is getting this road right to meet the floodplain standards to this project? I mean, is this a go, no-go thing? If you don't, I mean, can you get a variance? What do you do?
Joe, I think it's very important for the village's own LWRP to be legitimate. You have to have a compliant road down there. But everything the village is saying about redeveloping the northern
And I'm not
quarter.
debating that piece.
So what
My
we're
only
doing
question
here,
is since, you know, what.
we're putting the village
If somebody
to
says
make it
no,
compliant.
you know, I don't know what to do. So my question is there a workaround? Is there something?
Well, the workaround was
happen? You know, is this a real gateway to this thing moving forward? That's the only question. And it's not, I don't think there's much the village can do if it's somebody's private property. I don't know the answer, but these two guys.
There really isn't anything for the village to do other than take advantage of the
Well, no,
situation
that's
where
exactly,
we're legitimately.
I'm just saying there's a very practical issue here, that you want to go across somebody else's property and make some improvement.
We have a legal right to do that.
Okay. So
It is a document that's in
I
the
just want to
village's
make sure we
possession.
go, you know, we're heading down a very expensive proposition here.
Absolutely.
And to have, you know, the road be the problem, how do we get around the road?
We have a court-ordered 30-foot right-of-way over the Santucci property.
But not
and to improve it.
Yeah, we
However,
can.
the
Oh, yeah.
level of improvement is something that we certainly want to have a collaborative discussion.
You guys,
with the
I'm
citizens.
just pointing out now that that's a problem to solve.
Yes.
We have to develop a compliant road.
Now, so maybe I misunderstood the alignment part, when you said the partnership with the town, I think you meant the village.
Yeah.
And regarding that building, but I don't think I understood where you were headed with that.
It's really what we're trying to reach out to Santucci and to see if there's an opportunity to relocate the road.
That's another
adjacent-
alternative.
Adjacent to, right, in addition, as an alternative to providing them access, which we can, with a raised roadway to that building.
The goal is to
We're-
figure out how to make the new flood.
That's correct.
Joe,
How do we get there?
the board is fully aware of what that building represents. The prior occupant of that building has so contaminated that site. There's another situation there that, okay, it has nothing to do with the village.
But
we
in a
are-
different, in a
we
different
are
way,
gonna-
not necessarily this board, it does. But our concern right now is, I just need to know from these guys, this guy here, is this do we have, as I think, I point out, alternative solutions? Should they go, sorry, I think you're paying it, but you're not raising it, I don't know what they're gonna say. But I have to say, at the outset, this is a very productive discussion. And I hope we're to the point now, and Brian, you're gonna have to go back to Joe and Lynn and tell me when we can have an actual sit-down productive work session. So we can sit down and, there are not 17 other applicants. We can spend a couple hours sort of working through each one of these things on its merit. Some of these things, I think, need to, since we talked about the SEIS, what I'm hearing now is there are changes to the SEIS that you guys need to blend in and say, here's the updated version. So.
And part of that is making this road work and how, from an engineering perspective, we have access to the building.
It's okay with moving along as long as somebody knows at the end of the day, somebody's going to be a scribe and figure out where we get a document that now we can start to move to the FEIS stage, right? Because there's a lot of changes being occurred.
Right.
More
Can
than
you
I
also
can,
get a copy?
Right, and I think it's a little fair to suggest that we assumed that, for example, the fire access road was needed. Well, you proposed that many years ago, and it's been a part of this plan for a long, long time. And this is the first 15 minutes that we've understood that it's now evolving out. So I think as responsible planning board members, right, especially beyond good planning notions, when it comes to life safety notions, we want to put an eye on it. So, when you say it's a little unfair, well, that's not a fair
John,
characterization.
if I may, the original iteration of this plan, there was first a primary plan that we abandoned because there was no development on the plateau. When we came down and did the complete program on the grade, the original plan had basically what is being shown now.
I don't remember quite.
An iteration of that was the ring road afterwards. So the
That may
original.
be completely true, and I
I'll show-
apologize if I
I'll show
don't
you
remember that.
documents. I'll show you
But we've
documents.
lived with the ring road now for
But we
quite some
did
time.
start this way, and the ring road was an expansion on an idea.
And it might have been a review with the fire department, fire chief at the time, and said, I need to be able to get.
No, I remember distinctly, it was my choice, it was my.
Well, that's good.
My
But
thing
put
to
it on
do a
the
ring
table,
road.
and now you take it off the table,
Well,
you just need it to.
With the new apparatus, if the new apparatus created an issue with that ring road, since the ring road was not a necessity, it's gone.
That's okay, as long as
And that's
somebody
all we're
writes the
asking, is the
documentation.
chart that,
But we're
We got it.
just,
Yep.
we're
We got it.
driving over the same road.
David, I lost track after the village was out of that lawsuit. I sort of lost track of where your guys are with the Santucci's, and from what I understand, you have a court order, I
We have
guess.
a quarter, and I've
Smith.
submitted it, yeah, submitted it.
Can I get a copy of that? Can you?
Yes, it was in the package that I submitted in my access memo as one of the exhibits.
Yeah, okay, but can I question?
Yes.
So that's, you're talking about the court order roughly 2004?
Yeah, but then there were later proceedings
Right.
that recognized again the court order, and that frankly, the only thing that isn't done is that we haven't decided on the final meets and bounds of the 30 feet. And this is part of what we want to discuss with them. I mean, it's,
So
rather than have the
we
court
can-
impose it.
We can discuss this offline.
Yeah.
I do not think that despite what, let me not even go there. There was we were aware of a stipulation that was so in or about 2004. And in that stipulation, it said that the Santucci's would grant a 30-foot easement.
Yes.
In an area to be located in the future.
Yep.
The applicant then went back into further litigation with them in or about 2011, claiming to the court that they had failed and refused to do that, to give you the actual easement, to locate and give you the actual easement.
Well, that wasn't
I think
the
what's-
real, the main thrust of it, though, that was the one that involved the village. And the village was dismissed from that action because they felt that certain things weren't ripe yet for determination. And ultimately, that action was ended without prejudice, withdrawn, with no final
So that's what
determination.
we need to see. I have the papers, I have the
Yeah.
complaint, I've read the
Yeah.
complaint in that action.
Yeah.
It did not start with an action against the village.
Oh,
It
yeah.
started with an
Yeah.
action against the Santucci's.
That was the original action.
And then there was a conference in the court, and there was discussion of bringing the village in. But it started, not the original action, it was all the same proceeding, but in 2011, it was restarted because of an allegation by the applicant that the Santucci's weren't doing what they were supposed to do under the prior step. I think what Mr. Malone's asking, and what I'm asking as well, is to provide us with the information as to how those 2011 proceedings concluded.
Oh, sure, I have the final conclusion, it was withdrawn without prejudice.
Okay, so that's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, and I apologize for this, but may I ask one question that is, at some point, I believe, going to be intertwined in this discussion? And it's court orders using the word improvements in the built environment. And so in your case, you have as I understand it, a 30-foot wide easement that you're allowed to improve.
Yes.
And that's as far as the court order went, using the word improve. So and I'm just theorizing based on past experiences in other scenarios. So in the worst case instance, adjacent to the Santucci property, the improvement means, just give me a brief characterization. The road is
3 feet higher
3 feet higher, adjacent to
to a building.
right.
Not always 3 feet higher, sometimes
No,
zero.
maximum, yeah,
It
between
varies
0 and
0
3
and 3 feet.
Okay, so where I'm headed is, there's some real world engineering challenges
Yes.
that are either going to impart themselves on the Santucci property or have some kind of signature, right? Either retaining wall or.
Correct.
Or lead to a circumstance where they won't be able to access their property unless they incorporate other improvements along with your improvements. Is that a fair statement?
There will be, yes, beyond the 30-foot.
And I don't want to get bogged down in here, other than, I can see I think I see the additional layers of trajectory on this, above and beyond what has been discussed here potentially. So,
It's an engineering solution that's
there's a lot, it's an engineering
and the
solution.
legal battle to,
When the
for access.
stipulation was given down, the understanding was we had a 30-foot right-of-way to redevelop the roadway. Explained in the stipulation in detail was a sidewalk and curbs.
Right.
That instantly changes the nature of that road down there, where there is no curbs for the length of it. So that understanding, the Santucci's have had that understanding for the last 13 years.
And that's
Okay.
likely
So
a broadly true
aside from the elevation
statement. I'm not
change,
disputing that, but I
aside from the elevation change, there's physical changes to the road that would have occurred. That would have
if that's all
affected-
this was, I wouldn't be talking then.
Okay.
But it's headed towards something.
John, I understand where you're going, right? But I also want to point out, it says more than just improve. The court order says the paved area of the lower road across the defendant's property shall be made a uniform width of no greater than 30 feet, inclusive of roadway, sidewalk, curbing, and drainage. I mean, they talk about, that just word. They talk about actually.
That's why you guys are all right, and I don't want to drill into this other than to say, There's something else, there's another hurdle coming down the road here that everybody,
And
and to speak to Joe's point, which is if this is the only path, literally and figuratively, to this project, you know, the dance ain't over yet. But you guys have got some other heavy lifting,
I
I
would like
think.
to remind the board that this is not only for the benefit of this project. It is for the benefit of a district, of a zone that you've identified for redevelopment.
I agree, look, that, you're right, and
Nobody's disputing that.
nobody disputes that, but there's a very big legal and engineering challenge here.
So I'm gonna call it heavy lifting.
Because if this thing is 3 feet high, somehow you've gotta get a slope that's gonna work to this adjacent property, that's gonna still have beneficial use. I don't know how you're gonna figure that out.
And rest
But I
assured,
don't think anybody disagrees that
rest
that's a
assured,
hurdle
we're
we have to
trying to
go through.
locate this where it has the least impact on our neighbor.
Okay, I'm gonna bet you're
Joe,
gonna do everything you can. I'm
Joe,
just
we
saying
can easily
that
produce this road, but it'll impact him more than we feel we should. By moving the road to the east, we're greatly reducing the elevation.
I think
we're
all you
trying not
have to
to do
do,
that.
quite honestly, is that you gotta convince him, and he signs a piece of paper that says this works for me, and that gets you in and out of the site.
Right.
Is that fundamentally, if I were to narrow it down to the simple deal?
With
There's
respect to
some
what's
point-
being proposed visually.
Forget about what's being proposed. At the end of the day, for you to meet the new regulations for floodplain, you need to do something. And that something involves improvements, if I use the word, maybe it's not, to somebody else's property, right? And that person has to agree to that. If they don't agree, is there a workaround? That's I don't
They
need an
don't
answer
have
to
that
that.
choice, Joe.
But, well,
The
I
court
don't know.
stipulation says they
I'm
must.
hoping that between these two lawyers and this engineer, they'll figure that out. All I'm saying is that for this board to do anything, that has to occur.
Understood.
That's all.
Understood.
Right. And
One way or the other.
And just as the building was redesigned to accommodate, this is we understand what has to be done here in order to proceed with this, which is why we didn't submit plans for review.
Okay.
So there is additional engineering that's got to be done.
So where do we go from here?
That's it.
So, okay, so let's carve out
Those are the changes
couple of
that-
the next steps.
Right.
Because I really want to sit down and begin to look at these plans. It's some time. This was good because it was a long agenda tonight that we had beforehand. We got to spend an hour talking about this, but I think we need another 2 or 3 hours just to get our hands around where we are, what changes we've made to the last official document that this board has reviewed, so that we can move forward.
Right, and those changes would reflect, in the SFEIS would reflect whatever the final
Somebody's
site plan
gonna
that we are
update
submitting.
this document that
to
says,
the
here's
board.
what we know now, right? There's a building going, there's an argument that David made before about documents that exist from 2004 on about structural, composition of buildings and whether they're able to be moved, and there's some questions that, forget about I should say, I'll amend that, is that there are some new considerations from our Historical Review Commission with respect to, can we do something that, addresses the historical nature of that site, whether it's the building moves, whether it's the bricks are used, I don't know. You guys will figure that out, right? But I'm just saying but that's a going forward discussion. Right now, what I need is, so the documents that we're actually going to look at, right, are different. The documents that I have are different than the ones that we need to go forward.
Yes, they need to be updated to reflect.
And that's all,
the
okay,
changes
so
that we
we
have.
need to, and I'd like to, I don't know, we're getting into summer, who knows what's gonna happen, but I'd like to, as soon as our staff and your staff can figure out that we are now ready to go forward with something that's concrete, to close out all the questions that were asked tonight, with either a path to get to the answer or the answer. I'd like to sit down and start to look at the things that we really haven't paid any attention to for the last excellent review. So,
One of them being whether this
Well,
is a
that's
viable
brand new
solution.
to
or-
us, and I can understand that there were discussions between the village and the applicant on certain things that should come here, and, we got,
Right, it's time for it to be on the site plan.
A lot of lawyers.
Right, and that in and of itself has its own microcosm of planning question,
Right.
right? So that's,
But worthwhile, it's a benefit that.
no, I think as a
Yeah.
concept and a notion, nobody's,
So we could discuss that too, but since that's currently village property today, the truth is, they can do what they want with it. Right? They're not bound by our zoning ordinances. If they want to put a 15-story building in, they certainly can. So, but, and they'll have to assess the value of that against the park, et cetera, and rerouting the road. But our job is to figure out if there's a way to get to this building, and then what are we going to do? What are we going to do once we get there?
Let me rephrase that if I may. We will have a way to get to the building, and we'll present that to you.
Okay, whatever.
So I
Not
can
if.
understand, Joe, to simplify things, do we take that parking lot off the plans?
I leave it there because it has some impact on, you're proposing, this is how the road is gonna lay out. There's a lot of changes that I wouldn't change anything, but.
The
it
road
won't be
lays
part-
out.
It won't
The
be
road
part of,
lays
I
out.
mean,
If-
I think the problem with that is, and again, I think we're running concurrently here, right? Because you're saying, as part of this plan, we're gonna improve your property, Village of Oxford. And that's okay. So from that point of view, leave it on there. But again, it's another one of those, you're approving somebody else's property, they gotta wanna do it, right?
Well, it's an offer to
Right.
improve the
I
property.
mean, in all the other things that we've done where people have said, we're gonna improve something, it's been their property, and they said, oh, by the way, when we're done, it's yours. Right? And so, but this is, and it's happened before.
Well, Joe, I've had plenty of instances, however, where a village or a town says, come in and improve our water lines going down the street, make better access for water to the condominium nearby.
But by the way, stand by,
Yeah.
right? Because there's a dead end someplace up there of a water main, I'm pretty sure.
but in all those instances, there's always a checks and balance to either the engineering or the design. I would, I
Certainly
understand the
always a
notion that
check.
it's a village parcel and perhaps they don't, but I would say that where that parking lot meets this drive, the entry,
Yep.
that is a part of this formula. But after that, you may be right, technically. How many spaces, what the materials are, if it's lighted, what the pitch, what the, if that's all, but where that entrance meets this, our entrance, your entrance.
But on the other hand, this is part of the public benefit. So if the village goes, it's not, we're not interested, then we have to make an assessment of now what is the public benefit. Right?
There's a
And so-
couple of layers.
So that's why I said I wouldn't be dismissing it as sort of a parallel action here that probably should happen, I just don't know when.
And if I may, John, to your point, as far as whatever the parking situation is, the number of cars, how it's handled, the connection to North Water Street is what we've been trying to establish with the village. The Santucci's obligation in '03 and '04, when they talked to the village about doing that, the village never came to the table, never gave them the time of day. They left the situation frustrated and threw it on us. That's what prompted the subsequent involvement with the village by Plateau. Originally, it was Santucci's obligation from the court order to get that connection, the meets and bounds. And the village never came to the table on that.
Right. You know that those timelines from the history of, from Mesozoic to modern times to modernity?
We pretty much
I feel like
covered
we
it.
need one of those, right?
We pretty much covered it.
All of those notions.
Okay,
Keep spinning
so
up
I think we are where we need to be.
Joe, just one thing. I know we're going to get a revised document and so forth, but just for housekeeping, I think you need to have a resolution extending the time for completion of the FEIS. At this point, you might as well bump it to August. I mean, it's not getting completed, by then, but just to keep the house here.
So, I mean, if August is not realistic, and September is more realistic, given where we're heading, I'd rather not do this again in August when somebody goes, hey, you know what, we're not.
I agree. We don't even have to.
I think we're making progress here. So, I think that's a reasonable approach to you guys. All right?
Yeah, it seems so.
All right.
I can't say otherwise since I don't have a document in front of me right now, so.
Okay, all right. But that doesn't mean you should look at it.
Nope.
I just think you need a motion.
Yeah, no, we'll do that, So before we adjourn, is there a motion to extend September meeting is, Jamie? You know what it is? I know.
Should be till the day after your September.
Right, I got it fixed. Here it is. I didn't understand it. Okay, so it looks like September 26th is the meeting, so the 27th of September. Okay, motion, second, Michael?
Also,
All in favor? Okay, good. And now motion to adjourn this to next month. And let us know when we can sit down. Okay. All right? Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so on the very last part of our hearing,
Hey, Jim, thank you very much. Let's just take care.
Safe those.
okay, so let's talk about text amendments.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order. If you've been going for 2 hours straight, does the board need a 5-minute break?
No, let's go. Because this is the text amendment?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, now I asked you a whole bunch of questions. I have to do it for your answers. Okay. This is the education law, right? Correct.
Yes,
Whether we really have
my
to go through
opinion is
this.
to make sure that a residential educational facility is allowed in the two-family district.
Right. Because it's exempt from this. Because it's because there's a New York State legislation indicating that dormitories were an accessory use of school, and therefore, the word's not met.
Right.
So have we produced that document?
So I produced, well, that was in our original submission that we provided last month, and as well as I supplied a supplemental letter with additional case law regarding that case law that says that educational uses should be preferred and that accessory uses are included as educational uses. Just for the record, Daniel Out with the firm of Petty and Fader here on behalf of Cardinal McCloskey, one of the petitioners. I'm joined by Anthony Monteleone, who's attorney for the sellers, the current owners of the premises at 155 North Highland. So when we were last before you, we had, you received but not yet had an opportunity to review our original petition and supplement to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees had then referred us to you. We had some dialogue back and forth, and then we've provided a supplemental letter with some additional case law and citations, supplementing the information that we have from our submissions to the Board of Trustees. So we're, again, procedurally where we're at is looking for, the Board of Trustees is looking for comments and concerns and considerations from the Planning Board regarding the proposed text amendment to the T-zoning district.
So help me in this document. Point me to the New York State law that actually enables what we want to do. I'm looking at all the PowerPoint charts, and I see words like it's in keeping with New York State law, but I don't see the New York State law.
Well, if you would, let's see here, probably the best, you should have a copy of our March 31st, 2017 submission to the, which is a petition to amend the zoning code, supplemental information in support of the pending petition.
March 31st?
March 31st.
The Mayor Gallery and Board of Trustees?
Yes. And let me, so, if you go through, yeah, it's court cases. It's all developed through case law. And so starting on page 5, this is how educational uses are favored under New York law. Cornell versus Bagnardi and Sarah Lawrence College are sort of the standard bearers of that. The trust, no, that was a PowerPoint presentation before the Board of Trustees, simply to outline the history of the property, and sort of our unique situation that we're placed in.
In the March 31st?
March 31st.
2007.
Page, if you forward through the front portion to page 5, and it goes through the various case law development. Trustees
Cornell versus
Bagnardi. So, I mean, it's not light reading, I grant you.
Just from my quick reading, I didn't see anything that's specifically what you're looking at.
Exactly.
You can interpret certain things and analogize certain things based on just a quick review of that letter. But I don't think you're going to find anything in the cases that say that specifically an educational use with an accessory residential type of component is preferred or gets preferential treatment.
The Appellate Division, Second Department, found that such uses were such uses were permitted, knowing that educational institutions are generally permitted to engage in activities and locate on their property facilities for such social, recreational, athletic, and other accessory uses that are reasonably associated with their educational purpose. Town of Islip versus Downing College.
Yeah, but.
So that, I mean, that's our position, that it should be allowed. I think it's also just on the merits of it, it's a logical nature of it.
I don't agree. I think that, what do we do in the current request? What do we do in the building next door that's now occupied? Is that, is there an education?
Yes, it's exactly the same use that we're proposing.
So how did we get that?
It was a use variance, and we were before the zoning board of appeals, and they weren't willing to entertain.
But how do you?
I think what he's asking is how did, there's another property, you have 155 and 145.
Mhm.
155 is where the current building is. How did you get that?
No, 145 is where the current Cardinal McCloskey operates, and then 155 is what we're in a contract to purchase, but we do not control that.
No, that's the others.
Did I flip them?
145 is the building owned by my client.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And that was the old rectory.
So
So historically,
was the rectory.
right, and 155 was, I believe, the convent.
Correct.
Right? So this property is extremely unique because it was a church property. All right, Anthony Monteleone, it was a church property. With the widening of Route 9, the church had to be demolished, all right? Leaving the rectory and the convent as the only two properties on the balance of the property, all right? My client bought this property about approximately 10 years ago, I'm not sure. He developed it as an office building. Right. I'm not quite sure how he went about doing that. Previously, it had been a restaurant, and I think this property needs to be looked at by your board and by the village as extremely unique, and how is it going to best work within the zoning and best work for the benefit of not only the village, but the property owner.
And nobody here disagrees. The question really is that because I know people live at 155 today.
Right.
Is there an educational process that goes along there too? Are there classrooms?
Yes, it's a school.
So, but they live there, so there are dormitories of some sort, right? Living quarters,
right,
that exists. Why do we need a text change and not a variance? If there's a pre-existing use that somehow made it through the process, by variance, as you point out, why is that? I'm not, you know, fluent enough in the zoning ordinance that says, I got the same exact thing next door. What makes this not, why doesn't this get a variance too?
Well, the use variance is a high standard, and it is only particular to the individual property generally. So going next door, we did appear before the zoning board of appeals last year in looking for.
In the same room.
A special permit to continue the
I get
non-conforming
all
use,
that,
or.
But you know what, it's.
But they wouldn't take up, they wouldn't.
It's a horse.
And they.
It's just a different horse. I'm very confused, somebody's gotta help me understand the logic.
Well, I can't tell you how they got the original property.
Right.
But when they came before the zoning board, there were two ways, basically, before the zoning board, they could have gotten this. They could have said that there was a pre-existing non-conforming use and another non-conforming use was continuing there. And that would have allowed them to potentially have a non-conforming use in that building for educational purposes. The problem was, it was an office building, which was a non-conforming use, but it had substantially ceased to be an office building. I think of the 8 offices that were in there, there was only one with a couple of people who were actually.
Oh, I got that.
So that takes away the pre-existing non-conforming use argument. Then you have the use variance, and in order to get a use variance, they have to show, generally through expert testimony, that there is no permitted use that could yield them a reasonable return. Well, it had been an office building, it just hadn't been rented. It would have been very difficult, I think, for them to prove that there was no permitted use in that particular.
See, fundamentally, this actually is bothering me, right? But we build zoning ordinances for a reason, right? And if we think this is an oversight, it's going to have larger implications than just this.
And that's actually one of the factors you have to consider.
Right? Is that, yeah, I mean, it's a text amendment to a particular zone. That's when variances are much better, because it goes to the particular use of a particular property and all the things that go on with it. Generally, you know, text amendment to a zoning ordinance has a much bigger impact, because now it opens the door to many other things. So I think.
Well, assuming that can only have a negative trend.
No, it can have a positive trend too, but for us, quite frankly, we sit here tonight and say this is a great idea, without some study that says what are the implications if this were to go forward. You know, how would we handle it in a different place? I mean, there's a building across the street, quite frankly, that used to be the other part of the school.
It used to be the school.
That could turn into anything tomorrow. And, you know.
It's in a different zoning district.
Well, yeah, but you know what? Strokes and bends happen. One could argue that it doesn't really belong to the district, because the only property that is odd on the side of the area, right? So, and if you sat through this whole meeting tonight, you hear we're full of arguments.
I did.
So, you know, I think if we're gonna make a decision to move forward, if I were sitting up there, I'd say, well, so tell me why. You know, what's the implication? Somebody's gonna have to figure this out at some point, right?
Right, so.
And since the Board of Zoning Appeals decided, for whatever reason, that they it would be different if they wrote the letter that they wrote before, that says, hey, we don't really have the jurisdiction to decide this. But they didn't. Right? They apparently denied it.
I think the use variance was, right, the use variance, whether the application was technically withdrawn or not, their suggestion was that you proceed with the text amendment.
Right. So, but then the burden comes to this board, I think.
Well,
figure out
comes
what the implications are.
Right, to recommend based on a number of things, and one of those things is how does that affect other properties, similarly situated other properties?
In the T-zone.
In the T-zone. I mean, from what I can see from the text amendment, they just include a definition of what an elementary and secondary school is. They say, including schools with residential facilities, accessory and incidental to an accredited school and serving no more than 25 students. So what they've sort of done is, in essence, crafted a definition of what the school is that generally I don't think could apply to very many other.
What you hoping to do?
Yes.
That's all, I mean, all I'm saying is, you know, and I'm, you know, I mean, there are other people on this board that can have an opinion besides me, but I don't know that we've done due diligence. We're taking it at this particular, we're specifically text amendment for spot zone.
I thought that one of the ideas was that you were going to try to change the zoning map and put this into a different zoning district rather than changing the text of the two-family zoning district.
That was, actually, that was the PowerPoint that the chairman was looking at. The problem has been that over the years, it's gone back and forth between the T zoning district and I think there's a business zoning district, and I think that's how your client ended up with an office use that was legal at one point, but then it went to the T zone, so it was legally
Well, the
non-conforming.
discussion was, because I was at the school when this first was discussed, and the
Yep.
discussion was is that the two buildings and the properties would probably never be developed as a two-family home. So they
Never.
really don't fit into a two-family zone district. And the contention was that you actually should go to see if you can have those two parcels removed from the two-family zone district.
Or would you connect it to the piece across
Or
the street?
connecting it to another zone on Highland that would fit.
You
your
try to
use.
connect it across the street, I think that was what was done in the past, but there was apparently resistance when we discussed that, and on top of it, it wouldn't fit our,
Let's explore that for a second.
it wouldn't have fit our use, we still would have needed variances, there were other issues about bringing that area, that district closer to the homes that are there, et cetera, for the size of the parcel.
So you don't avoid the board, the zoning board, right? But the question is, if we did that, it sort of legitimizes, even if it's in the past, in 155. It also theoretically opens up the door for a more interesting use of the property across the street than a storage place for trucks and some, satellite dishes have all come down, among other things. But there are other T zones, in Boston is full of T zones, and I don't know that we've actually looked at what this would mean, right? Would then impose sort of a requirement that there's a minimum acreage required?
I was just gonna say,
Are there things that need to sort of set this apart? Like you need a minimum of 2 acres, a building can't exceed,
I think we initially thought about that, and then it was suggested to us that we not put the minimum size in because we felt that the definition of the school itself, less than 25 students, would be sufficient, and that wouldn't be applicable to any other location within the other T zones. But we're open to that, we have no problem with that.
And I'm good with what you said, but that requires documentation. It says, the place, because, if you're dropping this in the middle of an business street, which is clearly a T zone, right? Or at some point, say a school changes its mission, and now it becomes a dormitory, et cetera. We change the T zone, we change that.
Right, understood.
So there's implications beyond just.
We have no problem with
So I
putting
think
in
we
a
have to
size
do, I think we have to do
requirement.
some homework. If you've done some homework already and
We
say,
have.
hey, that this is not, and we'd like to see it.
That was
If
in,
we're gonna send this to the board, I don't want to come back and say, did you guys do your homework?
Or we're creating a hardship down the road. That's what.
I don't know, I mean, if I take John's
Selling
point of view,
parcels.
but if I take John's point of view,
It's
it
just so
actually
unique a
becomes
parcel.
an interesting reuse of something that might not be used otherwise. I mean, I can see this going either way, right? But I don't think we're responsible planners if we don't sit down and say, all right, so here's why we believe it.
right, so,
I think
to
that's
that,
what we're
We'll have
talking
to
about.
impact
What
other
we're gonna do
parcels.
later about these two parcels, we understand the impact, right? And we wanna-
It's a good question, it's a fair question, and I think
well, to that, I mean, that's a concern, and I think that whenever you're looking at any kind of text amendment to rezoning, I think that you've always got the dilemma of not opening Pandora's box, right?
And we tried to consider that, and we did an overview, I don't want to say an analysis of the T zones,
And in looking at the zoning map, we did not see any other parcel where it would possibly fit.
So there's actually.
All right, now, how thorough do you want us to do that analysis?
Let me just say this about that. I don't know if it still exists. It doesn't exist because King's College doesn't exist anymore. But either on James or William Street between Spring and State, they had a dorm. They used to bring kids who were guard for school, they had a dorm down there. I think Ifton had built the place.
James Street, that's what we do?
No, not all, not, 40 James.
Further up.
Yeah, further up, in the first block. Right? That Reggie would know for sure. But you know, so that's an example of where that occurred in the past, but easily occurred again. And it was a dorm.
Well, and in anticipation of things like that, that's why we wanted to make sure it was narrowed to, number one, accessory to an existing educational use, not just like a satellite dorm. So, no, there would be a school on the 155.
I'm saying that they could, I mean, we could do that. The building is actually big enough to do exactly what you're doing.
Yes,
well,
exactly.
But also that the text amendment calls for use of existing buildings, not new buildings. Right. And then it limits the size, and we went through an analysis looking at various portions of the different neighborhoods that are encompassed by the T-zone
So if you
district.
have that data.
It's in the March 31st submission.
Yeah. You're going to be here.
All right, we want to submit
Okay.
So, I mean, that was, because that was the Board of Trustees question as well.
Right.
So we try to identify various things.
So they're aware of this.
So the other thing to note is that nursing facilities, residential components are already allowed in the T-zoning district by special permit, so.
But they don't teach anybody, which is their number.
But they don't teach anybody, right?
I mean,
So
I
you
get it,
can-
I mean, I think this is
Yeah.
fair, I just think we have to think about the impact, right? And if we, you know, we can't say you can only do this on Route 9, right? I don't think we can. But, you know, so we have to make sure you just can't drop this in the middle of 5 blocks of T-zone. Or knowingly we're doing it.
I don't think there's any other parcels on North Island that are T-zone over
But
there.
I'm not worried about that.
No, I'm saying they're the only two, I believe, that are T-zone.
And that was one of the things that we proposed originally, was that it be limited to North Highland.
Yeah,
But that,
I don't think we can do
Now
that.
that's-
we couldn't swing that
Yeah.
without spot
I
zoning.
think, but I can see you're right. In some formula like for zoning, we could do that. but I'm
No,
not gonna do that.
I agree. that
All right,
it's
so
legally
you got a little
insufficient.
homework to do?
So you want us to locate, to go through the T-zone, see how many other potential locations
I think
would apply.
It could apply, and then if you have some, you know, then we'll have to figure out what the impact is, but, you know, but I pointed out one that could easily happen.
One point is, the nature of this school is so unique, and the language that we put into the text change is so unique, that I don't think anyone other than Cardinal McCluskey would be able to do
Well,
it, because their services are so specialized.
Do we still run it? So, all right.
And we can assure you, Cardinal McCluskey won't
No,
look
I
to
can-
expand
I
in
can-
town.
I can sort of think of a few other places that sort of have had hard times with the use that we thought was a good idea, and could revert back to. So, I think it's worth, thank you, I think it's, like we said, generally I don't think this is a bad idea. I just think we have to have the right documentation to support it.
Yeah.
So in addition to, anything else in addition to studying the zones?
You're asking the wrong guy, it's just-
All right.
Here's what I would do. I would take a look at the 4 or 5 things that this board has to make a determination on, or
Right.
recommendation
We
on,
understand.
and fill in those blanks
Blanks.
with empirical data that support. And then I think it would be easier for them to look at those things and say, okay, that makes sense. Both the narrative and then the supporting documentation.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I think as a matter of procedure, when does this refer to anyway?
I don't know, and I think they said 62 days.
Because by the code, it's 62 days. And that's the village's code.
So the village, so what happens when you say
I think the village can extend it.
I don't know. I don't know in that case.
I think it can.
I think they just go on and it's not part of the record and they consider it themselves.
Well,
But I don't know that. I don't honestly know.
Well, it can't be actually viewed until we're here, so I would argue that it didn't start till we got here now. Our 60 days.
well, we would have no objection to the village board extending your time.
We can't act inside. We
I mean,
have to do it at a public meeting.
And I don't see,
The only time we can do it at a public meeting is now.
yeah.
So we should, I mean, I don't see why we can close this up like this. That's it. I mean, in fact, it was just last night we were here.
Yes.
Yeah, so, that was before you went. Before they referred you.
No, that was after they
Oh,
referred.
they did. Well, Mr. Collins, they meet if
I don't honestly think, I think if you are willing to waive the 62-day requirement,
How would they waive it to?
I think probably the board, it says that it shall be referred by the village board to the planning board for report, which shall be rendered within 62 days of such referral.
So we can send them a report that says we need more information.
Yes, and I think if you're willing to waive the 62 days, I can include in the letter that you have agreed to waive the 62 days so that we can get a full record
And
together.
that there would be a further,
Now,
that
having been said, we don't want an open-ended
No,
thing.
we don't need it. I like to clear things up.
Maybe another 30 days, 45 days, we'll work out two more meetings.
We'll be done by the September meeting.
Okay.
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 Great.
But we do understand the concerns, and that's why
Fine.
it's a very unique situation between the
Yeah.
code and the,
We're between a rock and a hard
And the
place,
current-
actually. And we're just trying to do something that
I
makes
get it.
sense
Listen,
and that
I'm
is justified.
so familiar with that area. You can't believe how familiar I am.
yeah. All right, well,
The history of it, my client, he had a very successful business there, and he was bought out by this large company, nationwide company, with the intention that they were going to remain there. Well, as large companies do, they gobble up the little guys and then they shut down the little operations. And that's exactly what they did.
I've never heard a story differently.
So, you know,
I truly have not.
well, David and Goliath,
Even when big companies get bought by bigger companies, same thing.
yeah, so I mean, it's not something that we brought upon ourselves. Yeah.
Okay.
thank you for your time. I know it's late night.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So,
Long evening.
yeah, well, we have a few more things to deal with here. So, earlier tonight, we had a discussion about these area or minimum acreage requirements. We recommend to the board that we do something. So, Mark, do we agree, by the way, that this is something we're...
Yes, I mean, I am not only advocating for the sliding scale application, but I would be surprised if we haven't done it in the past, but I can't be certain. I don't know what relevance that has or doesn't, but.
So, okay, well, maybe not, too, but I think it could happen. But let's fix it. So what do we have to do, Mark, to draft the...
Well, I drafted something actually that was based on the ZBA resolution, but I can turn that into a memo for your signature that just basically says, here's the issue, here's what the zoning board did. They felt they had in their jurisdiction, and we can just submit that. Now the three things I would indicate are they can either change somehow change that 3 acres, or they can provide a mechanism by which you can figure out a density ratio based on the land that's actually there. And then the other thing is, I just don't see a point to saying you can't have multiple dwelling units
We need to fix that. We need to fix that in any case.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
So those are the three things that I put in that draft, but
Okay.
I can turn that into a memo, in a day.
Any objections?
That makes a lot of sense.
All right, so,
Here's my emoji.
what do I need? We need a motion to empower the chairman to sign it.
Yes, I think probably that motion that you guys agree that it should be referred to the board for these three items.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Okay, good. Now, you all have the minutes?
Yes.
Anybody have any objections? Was everybody here? I think so.
I wasn't.
You were not. 1, 2, 3, 4, so we're still okay.
I don't think we even had a, we didn't have a.
Were you here on this one?
I was, I don't think we voted on anything, right?
Yeah.
It was a record 15 minutes.
Still have to approve the minutes. We didn't have any resolutions.
No.
Okay, and that, so that was one of my questions. Why do I have it here? There's no place for me to sign. Okay, so a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second, Michael.
Second.
All in favor? Gary, great. Motion to adjourn.
Well, I have one informal question.
Yes.
Is it still public session?
It's still, yeah, here, go ahead.
I came back after having, well, I'm William Baker, application PB 14.
Yep.
And if we're still on the record, I again asked the board, my engineer was here to make a presentation, he was stopped. And we were looking for procedurally to go forward. At one point in time on a prior application, I was taken off the agenda both on the zoning board and that subsequently the planning board. I'm very concerned with what has transpired. You took direction from the attorney, saying that some other application is affecting my application, and I just like, for the record and on the record, to know, where am I?
Okay, so I'll start with Larry may want to finish, but what we just, I don't know if you heard.
I heard that,
Okay,
yeah.
so we're going to send a letter to the village board recommending that the three changes that we raised, and your application and the known application, the other application, will not be dismissed with prejudice. We're just going to hold it until the village board agrees. So for the purposes of, and I don't know how the mechanism, but until the village board resolves the problem, one of the things that JB or you do is you gotta show up every month, and or you miss 2 months, you get taken off. That won't happen. Okay, we're just gonna, this happens sometimes when we have court cases too, where the judge is gonna make a decision before we can move forward. We don't hold that against the applicant and say, oh, this has happened for 2 months, you get off the agenda. But, what you should do is contact I would say the planning office will know before anybody whether the village board is done what they're gonna do. Since our letter that they are gonna send will use your project and the other project as examples of these problems, they may wanna contact you directly. Okay, but we're not gonna kick you off the agenda because this is not, it's not a problem that you created for yourself. This is a problem that we identified along the process that hopefully will have a good outcome.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Secondly, I have a similar situation before the zoning board.
Yes, and so we'll contact the zoning board. In some ways, we're saving a little bit of time. I know it's probably hard for you to recognize that, but you would have been before the zoning board. Next month, you likely would have, or the July meeting, you would have likely gotten a decision similar to 11 Hudson Street that said, we can't make a decision because we don't have the power to make that decision. We're referring it to. So what we're trying to do is expedite.
I can appreciate that, but I just have to, for the record, be sure that I am, again, not put off of the agenda because of no fault of mine.
No, no.
And,
you will not
I'll be in touch with you or somebody will be in touch with you in reference to this, to get copies of this, to figure out what's going on, because this thing, I see this thing spiraling down the toilet.
Well, I don't know about spiraling down the toilet, but I think that the village board at some point will have to either say yes or no to it, and then we might have a situation where we have to figure something else out.
Okay.
But it's clearly an issue that affects your property, somebody else's property, and probably 2 or 3 other properties that we're unaware of at this point.
No, on all due respect, I appreciate the heads up, but I thought I was being stymied on my application by not even accepting the presentation.
No, I think the bottom line is, this board can't act, they can't do anything until the zoning board acts. And what the zoning board is asking for is a way to act. They're saying to the board of trustees, we need you to give us the authority to act so that this board can act. So nobody's cutting you off and you won't be taken off the calendar.
Well, you understand.
I understand, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good.